How do you reckon the Royal Tour went this time round? Was it a success?
Yeah, well, listen, it's hard really to gauge. We only know what we've seen. And actually, I was just talking to someone about the impact it's had on the Italian press, because I think actually when you're on these kind of state visits, they're kind of less about how we're reporting them back home, and we can tell you everything that we've said and done. But actually, it's a lot more about how the Italian press have been writing it, and particularly that speech that the King gave in Parliament, partly in Italian, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But that, we said last week in the podcast, it goes down really well. Well, the headline in one of the papers the next day was King Charles III pulls off a miracle, and just by referencing like their wedding anniversary in Italian, he also spoke about a famous mafia lawyer who'd been murdered back in 1992, and he got a standing ovation. It just went down so well here. And that's the part of this, that's what state visits are about, Charlene. They're not really about how the British press report it, and that, but it's about how it's seen in the country that they are visiting.
Yeah, it's always this soft power of monarchy. With the visit was at the request of the British government. They are here at that request. But it is always, they're deployed to use that soft power that they have and to help strengthen relationships with countries like Italy. They've also been deployed to France, to Germany since they became King and Queen, and those visits also went down incredibly well and were sort of deemed afterwards a success, weren't they?
And you'll note that the three countries that Lizzie just listed in the EU are, by not coincidence, the three biggest economies. Germany, France, Italy have now all been ticked off as state visits for the King since his reign. It's not all about trade, but it is a lot about trade. And of course, with everything going on in the world with Donald Trump and his tariffs at the moment, building these kind of relations are very important.
It was described to us before this tour kicked off how these visits, or this visit, was sort of having them here was priceless, wasn't it? That was the word that was used to us.
Now, one thing you did mention last week is, of course, the King planning on speaking in Italian at some points during this tour. So did he manage to pull it off?
He did very well.
Yeah.
So he became the first British monarch to address a joint session of the Italian Parliament. He gave a very long speech. I think it was about 22 minutes all up, and it was in a blend of Italian and English, and it went down incredibly well, as Chris says.
I think, to be fair, the speeches in Germany and France had longer sections in those languages because he's much more comfortable with French and German. And I think we'd said last week, how's he going to do it in Italian? Well, my sources tell me that actually here in the residence, by the way, which is where the King and Queen were staying, as Lizzie said, he'd been doing a lot of rehearsing, and I think all the staff in the embassy were helping him with his pronunciation. But if you want to see for yourself how he did, this is what he sounds like in Italian.
Sono enormemente onorato di essere stato invitato qui oggi e molto grato al Presidente Mattarella per il suo gentile invito a compiere una visita di Stato in Italia.
Well, yes, I think he's done well. The words seem correct. I think that, I don't know, he could work a little bit on his delivery, I suppose. I won't give him completely 10 out of 10.
I think it's all about the effort, though, isn't it?
10 out of 10 for effort. That's how the Italians saw it. Because actually, British people don't really speak Italian very well.
He cares really deeply when he comes on these visits about, being able to speak the language of the country where he is. And he could have done a little bit at the top of the speech and then spoken the rest in English, but he made a real effort there to try and speak Italian throughout the speech, and had worked, as Chris says, quite hard in the days leading up to delivering it. So it's something that he spends a lot of time, I think, thinking about.
So, of course, Chris, it was meant to be 2 state visits, but ended up being 1, didn't it?
Yes, and we've spoken before about the Pope's had to cancel, so the state visit to the Vatican, which is of course a separate state, didn't happen. But they did release a picture on Thursday morning of the King and Queen having a private audience with Pope Francis. He was well enough to invite them into the Vatican. That happened on Wednesday afternoon, just after the speech to Parliament that we spoke about, and they did get to see Pope Francis, but that was a private visit, and the rearrangements for the state visit are still sort of on hold for the time being. Let's
talk fashion. I know that's a high point for you, Chris. You know, you're a little bit of a fashion icon, I suppose. There was something very interesting about what the Queen wore on one of the days of this tour, wasn't there?
Yes, so she wore white the other day, and she wore white on her wedding day.
I think I'll pick up. So the Queen's outfit that she wore to the Parliament, which is what we were just talking about, where the King delivered that speech, she re-wore the dress that she wore in 2005 to her wedding to Prince Charles at the time, now King Charles, and Wednesday was their 20th wedding anniversary on the 9th of April. So the dress or the outfit had been slightly repurposed by its designer Anna Valentine, and it also included some embroidery by a King's Foundation artisan, Beth Somerville. And I think when Chris says white, I think we're going with ivory.
Ivory was definitely what I meant. But actually, you know, Charlene, how the royals like to do things through imagery rather than words. So, you know, we didn't hear from Camilla on her wedding anniversary on Wednesday because they wanted the whole focus, of course, to be on the King's speech. But that's exactly how royals do things. They say, you know, oh, look, here's the dress coat that I was wearing on the day of my wedding at the Guildhall. Remember, she had a different outfit, I'm sure Lizzie knows what it is, at the St George's Chapel. And it's worth recapping, actually, a few of the things that happened around that time. Pope John Paul II had just died. The wedding was meant to be on the 8th of April, but they had to postpone the wedding so that Prince Charles could attend the funeral of the Pope, and we'll talk about the other Pope in a minute, I'm sure, as well. But it meant that they had a blessing at St George's Chapel on the Saturday that the Queen attended, but the actual wedding ceremony happened at the Guildhall in Windsor. The late Queen didn't attend, and that is when Camilla wore this ivory dress by Anna Valentine.
So there were a couple of other things around the anniversary to celebrate it while they were in Italy. They had some photographs taken actually here in the gardens that we're in at the moment. Those were taken by Getty photographer Chris Jackson. And the Queen also spoke not on camera, but she did a little chat with some of the British media that were travelling to Italy, and she was talking about the secrets to a successful marriage. They have now been married for 20 years, of course, and she was saying that friendship and laughing at the same things were kind of her secrets to a happy marriage. She was asked if they'd exchanged gifts, and the reporter chatting to her said, "Do you think his gift to you will be to perhaps slow down a bit? We know he's a workaholic, and that the Queen has said in the past that, you know, she can't get him to slow down." And her response was, "Dream on." Dream on,
indeed. I mean, 20th is China, and I think the Queen said she did get something China for him, but she didn't explain exactly what that was.
I think it's a really beautiful way for them to mark their 20th wedding anniversary, and I think it's a really good excuse to delve back into the archive, because we might as well to have a look back at that footage from 20 years ago. I can't believe it's been 20 years. It feels like it's flown by, really. But yeah, we're going to use this as an opportunity, I reckon, to have a look at and share those memories from 20 years ago, because, you know, there was so much controversy about that wedding, wasn't there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much to talk about at the time about Prince Charles marrying Camilla and everything that had happened before, and that you know, her going from the most hated woman in Britain, as some of the newspapers called her after the death of Princess Diana. So there was a lot riding on that wedding, and Camilla's actually spoken previously about waking up feeling absolutely frozen with fear. But yes, we've got a report, I think, haven't we, from that date in 2005?
Yeah, we do. Let's take a look.
As the Prince and his bride were being driven the short distance from Windsor Castle to the Guildhall this morning, history prepared to record a royal marriage without precedence. This, a royal love affair finally without hindrance. Their long and difficult journey to the altar was about to end. Prince William, a witness, and his brother Harry led the close family members into Windsor's Guildhall for the short, private, civil ceremony, from which 20 minutes later the married couple emerged, the Prince leading Camilla Parker Bowles out from the shadows on his arm. His former lover and mistress, now his wife, and the new Duchess of Cornwall.
So much has changed in 20 years, and there's so much more affection for Queen Camilla now. And of course, the brothers, you know, you don't see them pictured together anymore.